and they were meeting, and he came after her one last time.
And my overall impression was, this is someone who is very strong.
Your next favorite podcast pick starts now. Here's the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to the Professor and Heather Ann.
Although we don't have all the answers, we hope we can encourage and excite you. We're here sharing our lives to inspire you to make the most of the second half of your life.
So on our first episode, we shared a little bit about ourselves, kind of what we're looking to accomplish here and share on our next episodes. We decided for this episode, we're going to go ahead and jump into dating and our first date and the first couple of months of our dating.
With a focus on the impact of Heather's childhood on the way our relationship developed.
So we had our first date. We talked a little bit about that. We met at a coffee shop. I was late because I couldn't decide what to wear. Calling girlfriends, just really nervous. I did try on probably 8 or more different outfits. As the women out there listening would know, it's scary enough to go on dates, but to go on your very first date after 30 years, because my ex-husband and I were married for 26, together for 28, and so by the time I decided to start dating, it had been 30 years since I'd been on a date, and you just don't look the same as you do when you were 20 years old, and all of these things run through your head. It was very nerve-wracking. I don't know if I ever really told you this, but I considered canceling.
No, you never told me
Yes,
this.
I did. Thankfully, a few of our friends were like, no, you need to go on the date. Just go have fun, see what happens. And obviously, I'm very happy that we did, because here we are just literally 3 years later. And our first date was really interesting, and we connected right away. As soon as I got out of the car, walk up to you, you were wearing decent shoes. You were wearing good shoes.
The shoes made all the difference.
Shoes made all the difference. That was okay. I could give this guy a chance. He wore the right shoes. Didn't wear flip-flops or Birkenstocks or anything like that. So I was excited about that and nervous. Were you nervous?
I was nervous. I was, on the one hand, I felt like, and a big difference between dating when you're 20 and dating when you're 60 is that I'd had enough experiences that I was confident that I have had an interesting life. I have interesting things to say. Whereas when you're 20, it's all potential. You haven't really done anything yet. But just trying to both impress someone, but also remain humble and genuine. It's a difficult balancing act and something I hadn't done in a long time. So yes, I was nervous.
Well, I was nervous, the same thing. Again, it's just a natural thing for women. We want to make sure we're wearing the same, the right outfit, and our makeup and our hair is good. But also, I had accomplished a lot in my life as well, so I was confident in that. Being in business, I'm a very confident businesswoman. But also, I had things that I had to decide when I was going to share with you. And I was still in my mind how I was going to share with you. So about 30 minutes into our date, I just kind of threw out, hey, my family was in the front, it was front page news, not for the good, and just kind of left it at that.
So that was, I could ponder over that between that and our second date. which was maybe a week, a little less than a week
I think
late.
it was less than a week. So our second date was on Yom Kippur, which is a very
Odd thing to be a date.
So Yom Kippur is a very
Solemn holiday.
yes, and you fast,
And repent of your sins.
and then you go to services. And so we went the last night of Yom Kippur, and then you break your fast. And we didn't really get to talk, but we decided to, after Yom Kippur, to go get pie.
Yes.
And so we were able to sit down and have more of a conversation. And I think that's when I threw out.
So that's when Heather told me what it was that had made front page news.
So 3 weeks before my senior year, my family became front page news by. I grew up in a very trauma field. I was abused. I had been abused since I was 3, physically. By my dad. He terrorized us most of my childhood. My life was always black and white. There was no gray. It was either really, really good or really, really bad, and you never knew from day to day when that was going to switch. And my parents were meeting for, for things that they needed to meet for.
They had separated, right?
They had separated that summer. The only second time she had ever kicked him out of the house. And they were meeting, and he came after her one last time. And they were it was summertime. They were at a strip mall, pizza parlor, parking lot was full. But she wound up killing him with her car. And how we found out was the little snippets on the news. It was like one was DOA, one had been arrested, and we actually thought our dad had finally killed our mom because it wasn't the first time that he'd come after that, and it wasn't the first time he had tried to kill her. So sharing that very early on our second date, after a very solemn day as it was.
It was pretty heavy.
It was very heavy.
And I'd never known anyone. Well, I guess I can't really say I've never known anyone who had an experience like that, but I've never known anyone who told me about an experience like that. So this was something completely outside of my personal experience.
And I was actually surprised that I shared that very early on, but I think I kind of had the attitude of, if we're going to date, if this is going to go anywhere, I wanted to share this information. I didn't want it to be 6 months down the road, because my fear obviously would have been you wouldn't have been able to handle it. You didn't necessarily want to bring that into your life.
So I think it's a bit of valuable dating advice to sort of put the sorts of things that are most likely to alienate someone, to have those out front pretty quickly, rather than save them to be a surprise later.
Why do you think that?
Well, because you don't want to waste time with someone who's not going to be interested in you anymore once they find something out. It's the same with on profiles, to have any kinds of attitudes, opinions you have that you know are likely to be polarizing. Some people will really like it, some people will hate it. You got to get those right out in front. And all the people to whom that would be disqualifying, okay, they know, and then you don't have to waste any time with them, and they don't have to waste any time with you. So I kind of consider this as that kind of a thing. That
because we're older and we don't want to waste our time. Is that honestly that really is what it is? Is that I wasn't sure if I really wanted to start dating yet. Had fun. I was having fun with it. I only met 2 people off of the app, because once we met and started dating, it was 2 weeks in, you asked to date exclusively. So
I knew.
I was still a little worried. So with each date, I felt like I just kept giving you a little bit more information and a little bit more information. But that second date was when I really just dropped the bomb on, this is where I come from. This was what my life is.
And my overall impression was that this is someone who is very strong to have gone through experiences like this and to be where she is now, a success both in her professional life and her personal life as a successful mother, and just to someone who obviously had it together. That my impression was, this is someone who has been battered but not broken, and in some ways, like having gone through something like that, and to still have your act together, to be psychologically stable, is a remarkable accomplishment. So in my mind, this was actually a plus. But of course, anyone would be worried that it would be a minus, and so that's where you were coming from, right?
That's where I'm coming from. I mean, it's not, it's not an everyday occurrence. Number one, you think about it, and you probably know some people, but they don't talk about it. The chances of meeting somebody that has a parent in prison is already low. That's, the chances of that are low. But to meet somebody whose parent, she was found guilty of second-degree murder. So to meet somebody whose parent was in prison for murder is even less likely of a chance, especially from where you came from. And even in my business world, there's a lot of people that do know my story, but there's, a lot of people I do business with, that's never brought up. It's no need to bring that up. But it's a whole different type of topic in a relationship.
And I couldn't help but think about what this would have been like in the days of my great-grandparents who had arranged marriages, and the people arranging the marriages would, in fact, immediately disqualify someone who, if one parent was an abuser and the other parent was a murderer, then the assumption would be, well, this person has inherited those traits, so that they're no good.
We would have not been a match in the good old days.
In the old country, no.
So it was and it wasn't just sharing that; it was having to share the whole story. And honestly, for the first time in my life, I felt very comfortable and very safe with you, and to be able to share things with you that I had actually never shared with anybody, not even with my ex-husband. Even though my boys do know a lot of what happened to my childhood, and obviously they had to know that their grandmother had been in prison and what she was in prison for, because, we have Google nowadays and you can research any of this.
I researched it.
So you researched it.
Yes.
And what you read didn't scare you, or?
It didn't scare me, because I thought of all this as is this something that had happened to you, had been imposed on you, not anything that you had done. And so again, having gone through all that and emerged as strong as you were, seemed to me to actually be a plus.
Well, and it was important to me to share not just the nitty-gritty of this is what happened, but also all the emotions that went behind it. A lot of my childhood was the system letting us down multiple times. And even that night, we found out from the news. And
but the police didn't? The
police never came and ever talked to my sisters and I. I'm the youngest of I have two older sisters, and I'm the youngest. We found out from the news, and in California, the news didn't come on until 11 o'clock at night. So we're waiting and waiting to hear.
So this is 1986.
1986, and we're waiting to hear what in the world's going on. And like I said, my older sister lived in Southern California at the time and just had a baby, and we had to call her and tell her. Our response was, Mom's dead, and you need to come here. We had to figure all this out. So it wasn't just like, oh, here's what happened to my life. It was explaining a lot of those emotions behind that. And I was 17 years old. I was scared. It changed the whole trajectory of my life. And talking about this, we know that a lot of Gen X and baby boomers dealt with a lot of childhood trauma. And me being open and honest about this is part of hoping that maybe we can help others by me talking about it. Just like I brought it out in the open with you, being able to bring it out in the open with our audience, so that we can dive in more as we record more and more episodes. We'll be talking more about dealing with that trauma and the things that I went through, and the things that I had to overcome. One of the main things that I had to overcome was showing up at school. That first day of school, my senior year, and acting like nothing, even though we were all over the front page, all over the evening news, showing up and acting like everything was okay.
And so you didn't receive sympathy, you received mostly ostracism.
Yes, not so much that, yes, I would say, and I see now, at the time I saw it that way, I see now as an adult that adults, people that had gone to school with my whole life, they just didn't know what to say to me. Friends, parents, just what do you say to somebody when this happens? And so I really got to know who my friends were. I had a few teachers that I had throughout the 4 years of high school that would come and check on me and everything. But the biggest change that I had was I was going into my senior year of high school with a full ride scholarship already, and blew that my senior year. So just having to deal with the trauma and showing up in court. One of the things that I shared with you was just how I felt showing up at school that first day of school that year, when I had just, like the day before, went and visited my mom in county jail, because she was in county jail the first 3 months of my senior year, because they had set her bail at $500,000, and that was just not something we could obtain at that time.
So there was sort of trauma piled upon trauma. So one of the things you told me about in one of our first dates was about being a witness at your mother's trial, and a lawyer had accidentally on purpose left up there the photographs of
my dad's autopsy.
The autopsy.
Yeah, that was something that took me many years to actually forget. It was the first time I was testifying. It was the first time for the trial. You do pre-trial things and different things, and I hope to also get into is, especially people of our generation, maybe the younger generation of today don't necessarily see it this way, but we grew up learning about history and government, and you expect the system,
idealized view
of how the system works. And then once you're actually in the system, and we were in the court system and having to go to trials and judges and lawyers and the jury and everything, it's very different. It's not exactly what you think it's going to be. And that was very surprising and disappointing. It was very disappointing.
But there's a lot of
what you see on TV is not how it even remotely represents what truly happens in real life.
Corner cutting, deal making,
a lot of deals behind closed doors. But I was very comfortable being able to share that. And one of the things I really want to dive in is being able to talk and have conversations so that, because one of my passions when I go out and speak and everything is to help women. I want to encourage women. I talk about hope a lot because that's basically hope was the one thing that was constant with me on I knew I could have a better life. And even when all of this was going, I knew I could have a better life. And that's what kind of just kept me.
Hope brought you through.
Hope was my main hope, and having conversations with God and knowing that this wasn't my life. This was not the life I was going to live as an adult. So
for me, listening to these stories, I wanted to know more, but I didn't want to interrogate Heather. But I would ask questions like one of the questions I asked early on was, well, when this happened, when your mother killed your father, were you relieved?
And we were very relieved. We thought that he had killed her, and then within a few hours, family members were able to find out some things, even though the police still never came and questioned my sister and I. We were able to find out that actually he was the one that had been killed, that she was being arrested, and we were actually very relieved. It was like, okay, that's over. And we really felt at that time that people were going to listen to our story and understand why this happened. And the last thing we ever thought that our mother would be found guilty and go to prison. And we'll dive more into that because that's a whole few episodes of going through the system and doing all of that. But these are things that you know, when you're younger, when you're dating, you can keep things like that secret and you're not going to share as much stuff. But as you get older, like we had discussed earlier, you just want to lay it on the line. Here it is. This is what I've got.
Take it or leave it.
You want to continue? Is it too much?
So yes, one of the things Heather was saying is, are you sure you want into this crazy?
That's it. And I still kind of say that today.
Today it's a joke.
Yes. Now it's like, you married into the crazy, so you're stuck with me. But it was. I was constantly, and you did great with assuring me as we kept getting closer and our relationship kept building. You were very good with letting me know that, yes, you actually a lot of times told me what happened to you is not who you are. It's just a part of you. And so by you just letting me talk about it and
yes. So, and there's so many pieces of it. I remember it was either our third or fourth date when you went into quite a lot of detail about visiting your mother in prison and what prison life is like, and also how the visitors are treated. And it's kind of almost like Kafkaesque. It's both brutal and absurd to the point of being funny. You know, if you could bring yourself to laugh at it. And I just remember being kind of just transfixed by this story.
I think you were a little surprised that I did make a lot of jokes. So one of the things, and I'm going to be honest, and everybody works, and listeners out there know, everybody works through their own trauma and everything in their own way. But my sisters and I, we use a lot of laughter and we make a lot of jokes. And there are jokes that do offend people, but it's helped us deal with all this trauma.
The humor. It's a catharsis.
It is. It's like, there is something to be said to walk through those gates. And it's very different from county jail and prison. So we learned that as well. But to be able to walk through the security gates, wait, and just all of what that brings, it's just a surprise of...
You have to be searched.
You have to be searched. you can't take certain things, you can't wear certain things, just learning all the rules and regulations, and being able to share that with you. Another thing that happened the first couple of months for our relationship is a lot of times, because you lived in Stillwater and I lived in Tulsa,
These are about an hour and 15 minutes.
difference. So we would have to plan dates and weekends and different things like that. And we'd like, oh, well, let's go to dinner. We're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. And you would come over, and then I just wanted to sleep. I was afraid you were going to think I had narcolepsy or something, because it's like, no, I don't want to go out. Let's just have dinner here. Let's go get something, bring it back. But it was I learned now, because we've done research and stuff about it since, is that truly for the first time in my life, I felt safe. I felt safe to sleep with and just fall asleep. We'll get into all that other stuff, but just literally being with you. We would be watching a movie and I would just fall asleep. And you'd think that I'd never slept in my entire life, but apparently I haven't. Because as anybody that's lived through trauma as a child, one of the things that maybe you don't know, or you've never really even experienced yet in your life, or didn't realize in your life, is that when a child wakes up in trauma, they don't just jump out of bed. They actually wait and listen to the house. The house is going to tell them what type of day you're going to have. Is it already starting? Had events gone on all night? Had he been beating her all night? Did he wake us up and beat us? You just listen. And I had never really not had that in my life until I met you. So it was easy to feel comfortable. And one of the things that I do tell you all the time, we can share that, is that my soul feels safe for the first time in my life. And that is something that's magical.
I really can't attribute it to anything in particular that I do or say, or at least nothing that I can, put my finger on. It's more like just like who I am.
It's just who you are. It's a God thing.
It's a God thing.
We're going to talk about God. We might as well just bring him out right now. We're going to talk about him. We're very well aware. It's in our everyday conversations. We're very thankful to be here where we are. And
just the unlikeliness of our meeting.
We both grew up in California. I actually was in California in areas and stuff that you were.
It is possible that we crossed paths in Los Angeles in the early 90s.
I'm a little bit on the woo-woo side, the magical side, partly because I need to be. That was part of what helped me survive my childhood, was always being on the positive and looking for the good stuff in my life. So I always joke around with him when we first started dating that I probably passed you in Westwood, and we bumped each other. We didn't even know, but God had that all set up for us, that one day you would get in your Honda and drive east and come to Oklahoma, and we would meet in a coffee shop in Jinx, Oklahoma. Yeah. So that's, we'll be talking more about trauma. I would also like to have more experts on that we had discussed before in our first episode. We'll have some experts on to talk about childhood trauma, the negative things that we have that happen in our childhood, our ACEs. I talked a little bit about it in our first episode. That's all the adverse things.
Adverse childhood experiences.
And mine is a 10. And then the positive things, PACES stands for
protective and compensatory experiences.
I just call it the positive stuffs. So even though my ACEs is a 10, my PACEs is a 9. And that's truly what helped me become who I am today. I'm very fortunate. But dating at our age is, I've heard a lot of horror stories. I've had a lot of women my age ask about us dating, how we met. So we'll be diving into some other episodes about dating at this age and all of the things that go with dating
Yes, the low points as well as the high points.
Yeah, even the low points, the good, the bad, the ugly of dating in midlife. We'll be talking more about dating, and we'll have topics on trauma and more of the things that just affect people our age. We hope that you enjoyed this episode in which we talked more about dating and how our relationships first started. We have more exciting discussions coming up. Again, we've talked about different guests that we're going to have on. So join us here each week, my friends, where you're sure to get a smile. From lessons learned to mishaps, the adventures go on for miles on The Professor and Heather Ann.
Thank you for listening to The Professor and Heather Ann.